Butterfinger? That's the call sign? Sweetheart, a name like that's for somebody who drops her rifle in the mud. You here to fail us on paper, or you gonna show the boys you can even hold one? Gunnery Sergeant Travis Holloway said it loud. He said it for the whole line. The laughter rolled down the firing points like brass off a bench. 24 Marines on the known distance range, prone and kneeling, helmets bright in the morning sun. The berm threw the sound back at them. Solvent and cut grass. Wind off the high ground, 14, gusting 19. The woman he was talking to did not laugh. She did not flinch. She stood 3 steps behind the line in a plain shooting coat with no rank tabs, ear protection pushed up, a clipboard against her hip. 40 years old. Blonde hair pulled back tight under a faded ball cap. She wrote 1 line on the clipboard and did not look up. She had counted the wind without an instrument. She was the only person on the line who had. Holloway grinned at his own joke. 35 years old, barrel-chested, a gunnery sergeant's 3 chevrons, and 2 rockers stitched dark on his camis. He ran this range the way a man runs something he believes belongs to him. 8 years on the line. His rules, his board, his numbers. A civilian contractor sent down to audit his scoring, and his safety was, to Holloway, a clerk with a paycheck and a grudge against real Marines. She's here to make Marines look bad for a check, he told the line. Pay her no mind. Eyes downrange. We shoot. 40 meters back, at the steps of the glassed range tower, Master Sergeant Eli Karras did not move. 47 years old. 26 of them on ranges like this one. He had heard the call sign, too. He was the only one of them who had gone still instead of laughing. The line went hot. Strings cracked off in pairs, the flat double tap of 5.56 leaving the barrel and the steel answering downrange. The woman walked the back of the points slow, reading bodies, reading muzzles, riding. She moved at an even pace, 1 point every 12 seconds, never hurried, never still for long. A young Marine on point 7 finished a string, sat up too fast, and let his weapon swing. The muzzle came up off the deck and started a lazy arc toward the men beside him. Her hand was already on the barrel. Flat palm, easing it down and downrange, before Holloway's mouth was even open to shout. Too fast. Too practiced. A motion that had nothing to do with a clipboard and everything to do with a person who had stood behind weapons for a living, with real people downrange, in places this range was built to imitate. Then she stepped back into the contractor's slouch, wrote a line, and the moment closed over like water over a stone. "Watch your muzzle, devil," Holloway barked, a half-second late at the young Marine. He had not seen who fixed it. Karras had seen all of it. The woman wrote a second line, a time, a firing point number, 1 word, scores. She turned a page. She did not give Holloway her eyes. The contractor's coat hung loose on her shoulders, and under it she carried herself the way a blade carries itself in a sheath, nothing showing, everything ready. Her boots were wrong for a clerk, broken in at the ball, laced in a pattern that came from somewhere with a standard. Her watch sat face inward on her wrist, the way people wear them when a glint can get someone killed. A range coach 2 points down leaned to the Marine beside him and said it loud enough to carry. Heard she's some efficiency consultant. Comes in, writes a report, cuts 1/3 of your range days to save money. That's what these people do. The Marine spat in the dirt. The story moved down the line the way stories move on a range, fast, wrong, and useful to the man who started it. By the time it reached point 1, the contractor had become the enemy of every Marine who loved the smell of cordite, and Holloway had not had to say another word. She heard all of it. She let all of it stand. A person who corrects a rumor gives it air. A person who ignores one lets it starve. She had buried better men than Travis Holloway under exactly that much patience. You got something to say. Write it on your little board, Holloway called. I will, she said. 2 words. That was all. The line fired on, and the morning sun climbed the berm, and not one Marine on that range understood that the most dangerous person within 1,000 meters was the woman they had just been told to ignore. She wrote a 3rd line. She underlined the word, scores. And she waited, because waiting was the thing she did better than anyone alive. The dispute started at point 11, an hour later. A Marine named Dwyer posted a score that did not match his target. 4-inch group at 500 meters. The number on the sheet said 280. A 4-inch group at that distance did not earn 280. It earned a great deal less, and every shooter who had ever called a target knew it. Holloway waved it through. Good shooting, Dwyer. Next. The contractor stepped to the spotting scope without being asked. She put one eye to the glass for 3 seconds. She straightened. 4-inch group at 500, she said. That's a 230, not a 280. Somebody added 40 points. The line near her went quiet. Holloway's jaw set under 2 days of stubble. You calling my scoring dirty, contractor? I'm reading the target, she said. It reads 230. He came down off the tower steps, slow, letting the line watch. Then read this one. Next string, point 9. Tell me what he's gonna do, since you're such an expert. It was meant to break her. Call a string before it fired, in front of everyone, and own the embarrassment when she missed. A contractor would hedge. A contractor would say it depends. She looked downrange. She read the flags, the mirage boiling off the 400, the grass laid flat and then standing as the gust walked across the range from right to left. .4 mils left, hold center, she said. He'll print low left if he breaks it dirty. .9 fired, 3 rounds. They walked in exactly where she said, and the last one, jerked off a bad trigger press, printed low and left, a hand's width out, precisely where she had told them it would go. Nobody laughed now. Holloway stared at the target through the glass longer than he needed to. The number she had called sat on the steel like a fingerprint he could not wipe off. Beginner's luck, he said. Audit and shut up. Karras had moved closer. He had pulled an old range log from the tower, a green book gone soft at the corners, and he was running a finger down a column of names from a deployment cycle a long way back. He found a line. He read it twice. He looked at the woman, then back at the line, then at her hands. He said nothing, but he set the book down open and stood where he could watch those hands work. She read 3 more strings before noon. She called them all. Elevation in mils, wind in tenths, the clipped grammar of people who talk over gunfire for a living. Hold a mil 2, favor the right edge. He's cold, he'll throw the first one high. She was right about the first one. She was right about all of them. Where'd a contractor learn to call wind like that? A corporal asked, half to himself. She did not answer. She wrote. Karras came down off the tower steps with the green log book in his hand and crossed to the spotting scope as if he meant to check a target. He stopped beside her instead. He kept his voice under the noise of the line. 2015, he said. A draw. 7 men and a gun behind a wall. I had a buddy on that net. He still can't tell the story without his voice going. She did not look at him. She read the 400. Lot of stories on a lot of nets, Master Sergeant. Most of them grow in the telling, Karras said. That one shrank. Nobody who was there would say the distance out loud, because nobody believed it. He set the logbook down on the bench between them, open to a page of names from a cycle a long way back. I keep a book. Old habit. I write down what I see when the official paper says something different. I've been writing in it about this range for 3 years. She turned a page on her clipboard. Then keep writing, she said, and keep it somewhere Gunny Holloway can't reach. Karras almost smiled. He picked the book back up and walked it to the tower, and he put it in the one drawer on the installation he knew had a working lock. While the line reset, she lifted her phone, low against the coat, and photographed 70 sheets clipped to the tower board. Dwyer's, 2 others. The shutter was silent. Holloway saw the phone. He did not see what it was pointed at. "No pictures of my Marines," he said. "Of course," she said, and lowered it, and already had what she came for. 3 sheets, 3 lies. The first 3 threads of a thing she meant to pull all the way out. She had seen ranges run hot and ranges run lazy. Ranges where the gunny cut corners out of fatigue, and ranges where he cut them out of greed. This one had the smell of the second kind. The board was too clean. The numbers were too even, week to week, the way numbers are only even when a human hand is smoothing them. Real shooters had bad days. The weather had bad days. A board with no bad days was not a board at all. It was a story, and someone was writing it. She closed the clipboard. There was a particular patience that the work required, and she had spent 20 years learning it on ridgelines, colder and farther than this one. You did not pull the thread the moment you found it. You found all the threads first, and you waited, and you let the man holding the spool believe the whole time that he was the one in control of the cloth. By afternoon, the name had a nickname: Butter. Holloway gave it to the line like a gift, and the line took it, because that is what tired Marines do with a gift from the man who runs the board. A corporal mimed a rifle slipping out of his hands and yelped, "Whoops!" and the points around him laughed. "Butter's gonna fail us all," somebody said. "Better hold on tight, Butter," somebody else called when she crossed behind the firing points. She let it land. She wrote. Every name that called out, she logged, not from spite, but because a person who would mock on command would falsify on command, and the line was telling her, voice by voice, who belonged to Holloway. The cruelty found Lance Corporal Tessa Quinn at point 4. Quinn was 21 and shaking before she ever loaded. Her string went wide, 2 rounds off the paper entirely, and Holloway keyed the line speaker so the whole range could hear it crackle. "Quinn, you and Butter can share a lane. Neither of you's hitting anything today." The laugh that followed was worse because it was easy. Quinn's hands trembled on the rifle. Her eyes shone wet. She blinked hard at the dirt and tried to disappear into the shooting mat. The contractor knelt at her side. Quiet. Just for her. No one else could hear it. She did not touch the rifle. She moved Quinn's hips 2 inches in the dirt, squared her natural point of aim so the weapon pointed where the girl's body already wanted to go, and read Quinn's breathing the way she read everything, in a slow, practiced sweep that missed nothing, that started at the trigger finger and ended at the eyes. "Breathe out," she said. "Wait." Quinn breathed out. She waited, her chest going still. Her next 3 rounds went into a fist-sized group dead center, 3 holes you could cover with a closed hand. Quinn stared at the target like it belonged to someone else. "How did you—" "You already knew how," the woman said. "Your record's lying about you. That's all it's doing." "They want to drop me from the cycle," Quinn said, very low, so the points around them would not hear. "Gunny says 1 more bad string and I'm off the line for good. He says I'm wasting government brass." "How many rounds have you fired this month?" the woman asked. 40, ma'am. They only signed me out 40. He gives the men 200. She said it flat, not as a question. Quinn's eyes came up, startled, because it was true, and because no one had ever said it back to her. "You can't build a shooter on 40 rounds a month. He knows that. He's failing you on purpose, so the numbers he likes keep looking like skill instead of supply." She tapped the tight group on Quinn's target. "That's not luck. That's what you do when somebody squares your position and lets you breathe. Remember it." That was the word again. Record. She filed it where she filed the rest. On the tower board hung the protected names, the passes that did not match the targets behind them. And one name kept appearing as the shooter Holloway shielded most. A staff sergeant named Cole Renner off the line that day, passing every single cycle without ever once posting a group that earned it. 11 cycles, 11 lies. All with the same hand at the scoring desk. Quinn nodded, fast, blinking. She had never in her year on the installation been told that her bad numbers might not be her fault. The idea sat strange and bright in her, like a light coming on in a room she had decided was just dark. Across the line, the woman watched the pattern repeat with 2 other shooters, a private named Acker, a corporal named Diaz, both struggling, both rationed to 40 rounds, both about to be cut from the cycle, while Renner's name sailed through every week without a target to show for it. The brass was finite. Every round, Holloway protected for his friends, came out of someone else's training. The bullies on the line were not just cruel. They were the visible edge of a quiet theft, and the woman in the contractor's coat was writing the whole ledger of it, name by name, round by round. Holloway saw the contractor crouched at Quinn's point and crossed to them in 4 hard strides. He reached up and tore Quinn's target down off the carrier before the tower could score it. "Don't need a contractor coaching my Marines," he said. "Quinn, you shoot what you shoot." He balled the target up in one fist, paper crackling. If it makes your blood run hot to watch someone with real authority sit still and take it, to watch a good kid get torn down to protect a man's lie. Then subscribe to Honor Tales now, because the line is about to learn exactly what the name Butterfinger means. And so are you. The woman stood, brushed the dust off her knee, and watched the crumpled paper drop into the dirt. Quinn's best group of her life, balled up, before anyone could write it down. Holloway moved on her the only way men like him know how to move, on paper. By 1700 hours, he was up in the tower dictating a range safety incident to the range officer, a tired captain named Boyd, who wanted his weekend and did not want this. "Civilian interfered with a hot weapon," Holloway said, leaning over the desk. ".7 this morning. Grabbed a Marine's rifle on a live line. Endangered the firing point. Pull her badge. Write it up. I want her gone before her audit posts." He had taken the one moment that proved her, the muzzle she had saved, and turned it inside out. The save became the violation. The flat, fast hand that stopped a sweep became a hand that grabbed a weapon off a Marine. On paper, she was the danger now, and paper was the only weapon Holloway truly understood. The range officer found her at the cleaning tables behind the line. Her credentials were under review, he said, not unkindly. There was an incident report with her name on it. She might be walked off the installation by morning. She set down the bore rod. "Is there a camera on .7? There was. There was a camera on every point. 8 points, 8 feeds, time-stamped, written to the tower server. She walked the captain to the tower and pulled the line feed herself, frame by frame, from 0941. The young Marine sitting up too fast, the muzzle starting its arc. 3 Marines kneeling directly in its path at .6, 7, and 8. And her hand, flat, fast, certain, easing the barrel down a full second before anyone else on that range had even registered the danger. "That's not a grab," she said. "That's a save. Run it at quarter speed and count the men who'd have been swept by a hot muzzle." Captain Boyd ran it at quarter speed. He counted 3. He counted them twice. On the screen, the contractor's hand reached the barrel a full second before the young Marine's own head had even turned toward the danger he was creating. "A second," Beckett said. "At quarter speed, it looks slow. It wasn't slow. A muzzle sweeps 180 degrees in about that long. The difference between this footage and a memorial service is 1 second, and a pair of hands that have done it before." Boyd was quiet for a moment, watching the frame loop. "You've done it before," he said. It was not quite a question. "I've done a lot of things a clipboard wouldn't suggest," she said, and that was as far as she would take it. Behind them, Kara stood in the tower doorway, and under his breath, to no one, he said the thing he had been holding since morning. "No contractor moves a muzzle like that. That's a shooter's hands. That's somebody who's done it for real, with people downrange, more than once." Boyd rubbed his face with both hands. He did not sign the report. Not yet. But not yet is a thin thing, and Holloway had a friend. Staff Sergeant Cole Renner came up the tower stairs 10 minutes later, off duty, in civilian clothes, and leaned on the captain with the easy weight of a man calling in old chits. "Travis says she's trouble, sir. Travis runs the best qual numbers on the whole installation." "You really gonna take a contractor's word over your own gunny?" "The best qual numbers on the installation." The contractor heard that from across the room and did not smile, because she now understood the entire shape of it. The best numbers were the point. The best numbers were the crime. She understood the rest of it too, now, the way the whole machine turned. A gunny with the best qualification rates on the installation got the easy assignments and the good fitness reports and the quiet protection of every officer whose career touched his board. A perfect range made everyone above it look good. So no one above it asked the one question that would have ended it in an afternoon. Did the targets behind the numbers actually exist? Holloway had not been hiding the fraud. He had been hiding it in plain sight, behind a wall of people who did not want it found, and selling unqualified Marines a passing score they had not earned, and keeping the rounds those Marines should have fired for himself and his friends. Renner came down the tower stairs and passed close to her on his way out, close enough to be heard, low. "You should have stayed a clerk," he said. "Clerks get to go home." "So do honest men," she said, and wrote his name on the clipboard without looking up and underlined it. She asked the clerk for the .7 camera file to attach to her audit. It was already gone, pulled from the server an hour before. "Corrupted," the clerk said, and would not meet her eyes. She had copied all 8 feeds to her own encrypted drive at noon, the same minute she photographed the sheets. Holloway did not know that yet. He would. Karras found her after dark, at the long steel cleaning tables behind the armory, under a single sodium light that buzzed and threw everything amber. He did not ask her to confirm anything. He set a paper cup of coffee down beside her elbow and stood at a respectful distance, the way you stand near something you are not certain you are allowed to be near. "I served 2 ranges over from the men you pulled off that draw in 2015, he said. "I won't say the name out loud on this installation, but I heard it once on a closed radio net, from men who do not exaggerate, and I have never forgotten how they said it. Like a prayer, with the safety off. If you are who that name says you are, then let me help." Quietly. She ran a patch through the bore. She did not look up. "Help how, Master Sergeant?" "By making sure the right paper lands on the right desk before the wrong paper does," he said. "Holloway's been cooking numbers for 3 years that I can prove, and longer that I can't. Renner's his worst pass. 11 cycles. Not one honest group. There are others. I logged what I could, on my own, off the books. But I never had the standing to be believed over a gunny with a perfect range. You do. Even if nobody on this installation knows it yet." She set the bolt down on the cloth, square to the edge. "Pull the report he filed on me." "I tried." Karras shook his head slowly. "He read it as fear. He's not pulling it. He scheduled a demonstration instead." He paused, and the next part came harder. "A shoot-off. Tomorrow morning, on the line, in front of the whole range. He means to put you on a firing point and break you in public. One cold round, distant steel, no warm-up. Prove the contractor's a fraud. He thinks that ends your audit and your credibility in one shot. She thought about that for a long moment, turning the coffee cup a quarter turn on the steel without drinking it. A man who builds a stage to humiliate you, she knew, has also built a stage where every single person is watching. Good, she said. Good? Karis blinked. Ma'am, he's going to stand you up in front of 24 Marines and try to break you. He's going to gather every witness I need into one place at one time and put a camera on it, she said. I've spent 2 days trying to get this range to hold still long enough to see itself. He's about to do it for me, for free, and think it was his idea. She finally took a sip of the coffee. It had gone cold. She drank it anyway. Let him chalk it on the board, Master Sergeant. Make sure the camera's running. And make one phone call for me in the morning, to a number I'll give you. Don't dial it until I'm on the firing point. Karis looked at her for a long moment under the buzzing sodium light, and something in him that had been bent low for 3 years began, very slowly, to straighten. Yes, ma'am, he said, and for the first time in a long time, the title felt like it meant something. Karis almost smiled. He had heard restraint like that before, from men with quiet records and loud reputations, and it had always meant the same thing. It had always meant somebody had badly misjudged the room. He went and found Holloway in the equipment cage an hour later and told him plainly, one senior NCO to another. Pull the report, Gunny. I'm telling you as a friend. You don't know who you're swinging at. Holloway laughed in his face. I know exactly what she is. She's a clerk who got lucky reading wind off a flag. Tomorrow she puts up or she's gone, and you can stop tiptoeing around her. He chalked the shoot off on the board himself, pressing hard enough to snap the chalk. One cold round, distant unscored steel. The whole line is audience. He wrote butter in capital letters beside the lane and underlined it twice, and stood back to admire it. In the tower, alone, the contractor laid out the falsified record pattern across 2 desks under the lamp. 41 passes that did not match their targets, going back 3 full years. Everyone routed through Holloway's scoring desk, 11 of them shielding Renner, a range with the best numbers on the installation, built entirely on a board full of lies, and run by a man who had just scheduled his own reckoning and chalked it on a board. You already know the name on her file is real. What you don't know yet is the night she earned it, the night that turned a cruel joke into a legend on a closed net. That's the next part. Subscribe to Honor Tales so the reveal doesn't catch you flat-footed, because the line out there isn't getting the warning you just did. She squared the sheets into a stack. She turned off the desk lamp. Tomorrow she would let him swing. The contractor's coat hung on the back of the door in her quarters. Under it, folded once over the chair, were the camis of a lieutenant colonel who had not worn her rank in 11 days. Lieutenant Colonel Sloan Beckett, United States Marine Corps, MARSOC. She cleaned a rifle that was not a contractor's rifle, with the unhurried hands of a person who had done it 10,000 times in the dark, by feel, in places with no light to spare. And she let herself, for the length of one cleaning, go back. 2015. A mountain country far from this range. A rescue team of 7 pinned in a draw by a force that had them ranged and waiting, that had let them walk in on purpose. She had been 29 years old, alone in an Overwatch hide on a ridge 1,400 meters out, when the sky opened and the rain came down like the end of something. The hide filled with water. Cold, brown, fast. It came up over her boots and her thighs and her elbows, where they braced the rifle into her shoulder. Her gloves ran slick as butter, mud and rain working into the leather until nothing in the world had any grip at all. And the only thing that could not be allowed to slip in all that running water was the shot. Below her, 7 men were going to die in the next 90 seconds. She could hear it building. The enemy gun that had them pinned sat behind a low stone wall at 1,400 meters, in failing light, in a crosswind that changed direction every time she let out a breath. She wiped her trigger finger on the one dry inch of cloth left inside her collar. She built the firing solution in her head, the way other people say a prayer: elevation, wind, spin drift, the long, slow fall of a heavy round across all that distance and all that weather. She let half her breath go. She waited. One cold round, no second chance. A second shot would only tell them where she was and cost the team the 3 seconds they did not have. She broke it clean. The rifle, slick as it was in her ruined gloves, did not move a single hair because she did not permit it to. Her hands had decided, a long time ago, that they would not be the thing that failed. 1,400 meters away, the gun stopped. The draw went quiet. 7 men came up out of the rocks and ran, low and fast, toward a tree line and a future they had not expected to have. On the radio net, when they were clear, the team leader's voice had come up cracked and laughing and close to tears. Somebody on that team had once watched her bobble a canteen in a chow line and called her Butterfingers as a joke, and the joke had ridden along on every deployment after. The cruelest possible name for the steadiest hands any of them had ever stood behind. Butterfinger never drops, the team leader said on the net, again and again, until the whole task force heard it and the name stopped being a joke. Say again, Butterfinger never drops. It became something men said with their hats off after that. The name that had been a cruelty in a chow line became a creed on a radio net, and the woman who carried it learned the lesson that would define the rest of her career. That the world will hand you its worst name for you, and that you get to decide, with your hands and your patience, what that name comes to mean. She had decided a long time ago. Let them call her Butter. Let them mime dropping a rifle. The name had been buried in mud and rain at 1,400 meters, and come back meaning the opposite of what it was given to mean, and no gunnery sergeant with a chalkboard was going to take that away from her in an afternoon. Beckett set the clean rifle down on the rack and let the memory go. Her phone lit on the chair, a text from a number with no name. She read it twice. A greeting only one man had ever used, the name of a spotter she had carried off a different mountain under a flag, 8 years gone, listed killed in action with an empty box where a grave should be. She did not let her hands shake. She had spent her whole career not letting them. She squared the contractor's coat on its hanger. She turned off the light. In the morning, she would put the coat back on and walk to the firing line and let Gunnery Sergeant Travis Holloway finish building his own stage. The shoot-off drew the whole range by 0800. Holloway set the terms, like a man dealing himself a winning hand off the bottom of the deck. 1 cold round. No warm-up, no siders, no spotting. A single steel plate set out past the known distances at a range he would not name, unscored, small and wavering in the morning heat shimmer. A shot meant to be missed by anyone, built to be missed by a contractor. Hit or miss in front of everyone, and when Butter missed, her audit died with the laugh that followed. "Last chance to walk, contractor," he said, loud for the line. "Nobody here would blame you. Long way to a little plate." "Set the plate," she said. She walked to the firing point in the plain coat and lay down behind the rifle. The line crowded the points behind her. Helmets and shaved heads and folded arms. 24 Marines packed in to watch a civilian fail, the way a crowd packs in for a thing it expects to be ugly and quick. She settled into prone the way water settles into a low place, elbows set wide and even, cheek weld locked, the muzzle flat and downrange, steady on a thing nobody else on that line believed she could hit. Her breathing dropped and slowed until the coat barely moved. She read the plate without a range card. 800 meters, she made it, give or take 10, well past the known distances the line was painted for, set out on the far berm where the heat came off the ground in waves. A cold bore shot at 800 meters, one round, no sighter. With a rifle she had not zeroed herself in front of a crowd built to watch her fail. Holloway had chosen the terms to be impossible. He had chosen them, without knowing it, to be exactly the kind of shot she had built her whole life around. The hard ones were the only ones that had ever felt like home. The wind walked left to right across the 400 and eased at the 6. She built the solution the way she had built it in the flooded hide, the way she had built it 10,000 times since. Elevation. Wind. The long fall of the round. Her pulse dropped into the low 50s. The world narrowed to a small, bright circle of glass and a piece of steel that did not yet know it had already been hit. Holloway could not leave it alone. He stepped up beside her head, looked down at her in the dirt, and adjusted her position with the toe of his boot, a hard nudge into her support elbow as she settled, a deliberate knock to the one arm that had to stay still, dressed up for the crowd as coaching, on a hot line, on a shooter mid-settle, with the tower camera running and time stamped above him. A few of the Marines laughed, but not all of them, and not as easily as the day before. Some of them had watched her call 6 strings without a miss. Some of them had a small, cold doubt sitting in their stomachs that they could not name yet. Karras, at the tower, had gone the color of ash. He had seen a man put his boot on a sleeping animal he believed was a house cat, and he alone on that range knew it was not. "Whoops," he said, and grinned wide for the crowd. "Butterfingers." Her elbow did not move. The muzzle did not cross a hair off the plate. The rifle in her hands sat as still as it had sat in a flooded hide 1,400 meters above 7 men who lived to grow old. She turned her head, slowly, and looked up at him. And for the first time in 2 days, Lieutenant Colonel Sloan Beckett smiled. It was a calm smile, a certain one. The smile of a person who has just watched the trap close, with a clean metal sound, on the man who spent 2 days building it, and thought the whole time he was the trapper. "Thank you, Gunnery Sergeant," she said, quiet enough that only the nearest points heard it. "The camera got that." Holloway's grin slipped a half-inch. He did not know why. Something in the smile had reached into his chest and turned a key he did not know was there. At the tower, Karras had stopped breathing. He had seen the boot. He had seen the smile. He knew exactly what the smile meant. He stepped to the tower phone, lifted it off the cradle, dialed 3 numbers, and said 4 quiet words into the receiver. "Sir, she's on the line." Beckett looked back downrange. She reached up to the rifle and chambered the single cold round, one smooth, unhurried motion, the bolt riding home with a sound the whole line heard, because the whole line had, without being told, gone silent. She set the reticle on a plate she had no earthly business hitting. She laid her finger along the trigger and did not yet touch it. She read the wind in the grass, in tenths, the way she had read it her entire life. Behind the firing points, out past the tower, a plain government sedan rolled off the access road and stopped. A door opened. She let half her breath go. She waited. She broke the shot. The cold round left the barrel and crossed all that distance and rang the steel plate dead center. A clean, flat, unmistakable clang that came rolling back up the range a full second later and hung in the air over 24 Marines who had come to watch her miss and had instead watched her do something most of them had never seen done by anyone. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. The heat shimmer wavered over the plate, and the plate swung once on its chain, ringing softly. Into that silence, Master Sergeant Eli Karras spoke. He did not shout it. He said it the way men say things in church, with his cover in his hand. "That's Butterfinger," he said. Lieutenant Colonel Beckett, the shot off the draw in 2015, the one they teach at sniper school without ever giving it a name. That was her. That's who's been standing on your line for 2 days, scoring your targets and writing it all down. The name went down the points like a current through water. Some of them knew the story. Every scout sniper knew the story. The ones who knew it turned pale. The ones who did not know it understood instantly, from the faces of the ones who did, that something enormous had just been walking among them in a contractor's coat with no rank tabs. The sedan's door had opened onto a colonel. Colonel Grant Maddox, MARSOC Regiment Commander, crossed the range in service uniform, and the line came to its feet without an order being given. He walked to the firing point where Beckett was already rising, brushing the dust from the plain coat, and he stopped in front of her and came to attention and brought his hand up in a salute that he held. The line followed him. 24 Marines, the ones who had laughed, the ones who had called her butter, the ones who had mimed dropping a rifle, came to attention and saluted the woman they had spent 2 days mocking. "Colonel Beckett," Maddox said, "the regiment's been looking forward to your findings." From the back of the line, a young Marine, the one from Point 7, the one whose muzzle she had saved without him ever knowing, stared at her with his cover in both hands and said it before he could stop himself, his voice small and cracking in all that silence. "Are you really her, miss?" Beckett looked at him. The hard line of her face eased, just slightly, just for the kid. "It's ma'am, devil," Karras murmured to him, not unkindly. The boy went red to his ears. Beckett let it go. Then she turned to Gunnery Sergeant Travis Holloway and watched his face come apart in stages, the way a wall comes apart once the first stone is pulled. Confusion first. A man still waiting for the punchline of a joke he was certain he was telling. Then disbelief, as the salutes around him did not break, and did not break, and did not break. Then recognition, as the name and the shot and the smile all landed in him at the same instant, and he understood, finally, exactly what he had set his boot on. Then horror, plain and total. The face of a man who built a stage in front of his entire world, and has just discovered he is the only one standing on the trapdoor. 41 falsified qualifications, Gunnery Sergeant, Beckett said. Quiet. Even. The voice carried because nothing on that range competed with it. Going back 3 years, everyone routed through your tower, 11 of them covering for Staff Sergeant Renner, who has not earned a passing group in any cycle I've had eyes on. I have the score sheets. I have the targets. I have all 8 camera feeds, including the one you tried to delete. And I have you on a hotline, with your boot on a shooter's arm. Holloway opened his mouth. Nothing came out of it. "Stand down," she said. Captain Boyd and a senior NCO were already at his shoulders. Cole Renner, who had drifted up at the edge to watch the contractor fail, turned to leave and found 2 Marines standing politely, immovably, in his way. "This is a setup," Holloway said, and his voice cracked on the word. "She's not. There's no way she's—" He looked at Maddox. "Sir, you can't take a contractor's—" "She is the contractor because I sent her as one," Maddox said. He did not raise his voice. He did not need to. 3 commands flagged your range's numbers as too good to be real. I needed someone who could stand on your line and know in an hour whether it was supply, discipline, or fraud. There's exactly 1 Marine I trust to read a board and a wind flag, and a man at the same time. You had her for 2 days. You called her Butter." Holloway looked down the line for one single face that would back him. Every face was turned to attention. Not one of them was turned toward him. Even the men whose scores he had inflated would not meet his eyes, because they understood now what those scores had cost, and whose names had been quietly failed to make room for theirs. It came apart fast. the way these things always do once the first true thing is finally said aloud. The 41 falsified qualifications cascaded into a full review by nightfall. The recovered camera feeds, the score sheets that did not match their targets, laid out in rows. The protected passes with Renner's name on them, 11 cycles deep. Marines who had been failed honestly and held back and made to feel like nothing came forward one after another. Marines who had been passed dishonestly went very quiet. The range was frozen pending a complete requalification under new supervision. Every score on the board pulled and reshot. Holloway and Renner were taken into custody that evening, walked off the line they had ruled for years, into the back of the same kind of plain sedan that had brought a colonel to the range. The kingdom that had taken 8 years to build closed in a single afternoon, the way kingdoms built on lies tend to. Captain Boyd, who had almost signed the report, found Beckett at the tower and did not try to excuse himself. "I nearly walked you off, ma'am," he said. "I had the pen in my hand." "You didn't sign it," she said. "You watched the camera at quarter speed, and you counted the men. That's the whole job, Captain. Most people won't even do that much." She handed him the requalification plan she had already drafted. 2 pages. Every shooter on the board to reshoot under a witness. "Run it clean. Give the lance corporals 200 rounds a month like the rest. You'll be surprised who can actually shoot once somebody lets them." The whole range would reshoot from 0. 41 numbers came down off the board that night. Some Marines would pass the second time honestly and stand a little taller for it. A few would not, and would finally get the training they had been sold a lie instead of. It was, Beckett thought, the only kind of justice a range could offer. The chance to do the thing for real, in front of a witness, with nothing added and nothing taken away. Lance Corporal Tessa Quinn stood at the edge of all of it, not sure she was allowed to be there, not sure where to put her hands. Beckett found her by the cleaning tables as the light went long and gold over the berm. "You pulled my target," Quinn said. "He threw it in the dirt." "I scored it off the camera that night," Beckett said. "Best group on the line that day, by a margin." She held out a folded sheet of paper, a recommendation, signed in her own hand, putting Lance Corporal Quinn forward for scout sniper screening. "Master Sergeant Karras has agreed to prepare you for it himself. He does not agree to that for many. He agreed before I finished asking." Quinn took the paper in both hands, like it might come apart in the wind. "I shoot like my record says I do, ma'am. My record says I'm nothing." "Your record was written by a man who's in a sedan," Beckett said. "Breathe out. Wait. You already shoot better than your record ever said you could. Now go earn the real one and write it yourself. If you stayed all the way to the moment that whole line of Marines came to its feet, if that landed somewhere in your chest and sat there, then that is exactly what this channel is for. Subscribe to Honor Tales. The next story is already waiting, and out there somewhere is another name that somebody decided to underestimate. Evening came down on an empty range. The flags hung slack against their poles. The steel plate she had rung still sat out past the known distances, small and bright in the very last of the light, swinging the smallest amount in the dying wind. Beckett took off the contractor's coat at last and folded it once over her arm. She took out her phone and read the text one more time, the one from the number with no name, the greeting only one man in the world had ever used on her, a spotter she had carried under a flag 8 years ago, listed, killed in action. An empty box where a grave should be. Alive. The message was 3 lines. "Butterfinger, the tallow's still warm. Find me where the river forgets its name." Tallow, Sahel. She read it until she had it by heart. The river that forgets its name. She knew the place. She knew the man. She had buried him once already, with full honors and an empty casket, and the ground had quietly given him back. She put the phone away. She looked out at the plate one last time, the way a person looks at a thing they have just proven. to a whole line of doubters. They can still do. Then she walked off the firing line into the dark. A lieutenant colonel in a borrowed coat, already gone somewhere the next morning, would not be able to follow. Every soldier carries a story that few ever hear. Listen with your heart. Thank you for staying and watching. Subscribe to Honor Tales for more.